Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Now today we're going to be taking a look at something very special indeed. Today we're going to be looking at what's over my left shoulder. It's the BDH Racing Hardware Active Shifter. Now you might be wondering what's active about it. Well, this is a gear shifter with force feedback. I know it's mental. It takes the information from the simulator, from the telemetry into SimHub and delivers it to the shifter. And the result is absolutely mind-blowing. Now, a couple of things to mention before we dive in any further. This shifter isn't going to be for everybody. There's a couple of very specific people that are going to want to buy this. And I've got to hold my hands up and say that I am a big fan of BDH. So much so that I bought their original bazooka, which is what this shifter is based on. Now, BDH are a relatively small UK-based company, family-run, and all of these shifters are assembled by hand here in the UK. And as BDH aren't a million miles from where I live, I've been down a couple of times, having a cup of tea, having a bit of a chat, having a look at what they do there. And I can confirm all these are assembled in their workshop. So in the box, you obviously get the shifter, the gear shifter shaft, power supply, instruction booklets, and some T-nuts and bolts to mount it. Speaking of mounting, you can bottom mount it or side mount it like I have. Connects to the PC using one USB-C cable. Download the SimHub plugin, really easy, get it installed, and you're up and running. Now in SimHub, you can make changes to the haptics on the shifter, but you can also make those on the shifter itself, and you can see those on the small display. What you change on SimHub is reflected in real time on the shifter. There's a few more settings actually on the shifter itself than there is in SimHub. There's numerous different gearbox patterns that you can select. And the good thing is, if you selected, for example, a 4-speed gearbox with a reverse, you can't select 5th and 6th on the shifter. Those gates are locked out. And you can select various gearbox patterns as your favorites and just have those on the dial. So if you only used 4-speed reverse, 5-speed and a reverse, or a 6-speed reverse, you can just have those three. Or if you use a car with a dogleg gearbox, you can select that one. And you don't have to remap things in the simulator. You just change it on the shifter and it does it all for you. So the shifter itself is constructed from billet aluminium, just the same as their original bazooka. And it has a servo motor built in, which obviously gives you the force feedback from the simulator. And in a little while, I'll show you exactly what this shifter does that others don't. Because even with the original BDH shifter or any other shifter on the market, you may as well be using one of these to change gear, because all they are is inputs. Yes, it might feel really nice to change gear, but all you're doing is pressing a button. But with this, it's different. Now, I'm not going to kick the backside out of this because it's a shifter at the end of the day and all you're doing with it is changing gear. So let's jump in the simulator and I'll show you why it's a bit special. So we're in the simulator and hopefully I'll be able to show you what this shifter does that other shifters don't. So the gear shifter is obviously connected to the gearbox via a series of linkages, and the gearbox is connected to the engine via the clutch and the flywheel. Now, when the drivetrain is under load, i.e. when you've got it in gear and you're accelerating, really difficult in a real car to get the car out of gear. If the car's got a dog box, you can change gears when you lift off the gas and you just take the load off the drivetrain. But in cars with a synchromesh gearbox, most road cars, the Formula V on iRacing, it's really difficult in real life to get the car out of gear by using brute force. You'll be able to do it, but there's a good chance you'll cause some damage. So I've turned the haptics off now. So this shifter now will operate just like any other gear shifter out there on the market, including the previous BDH shifters. Hopefully this will all make sense. So now we're in second gear. I've just engaged second gear. But now I can move this gear shifter anywhere I want in the gearbox. 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd. It doesn't matter whether I've got the clutch in. Doesn't matter whether I'm accelerating or not. It might not engage the gear, but I can literally put the shifter wherever I want it. Now, what the new active shifter does, it simulates the drivetrain and simulates when you don't do things properly. So now we've turned the haptics on. I have set up a small microphone there, so hopefully you'll be able to hear when I get things wrong. I'll try not to talk when I'm trying to demonstrate that because it'll capture my voice at the same time. And you don't want that twice. So straight away I can feel some vibration through the gear shifter, so I know the haptics is working. Now remember before I turned on the haptics, I could put the gear shifter into any gate that I wanted. And I also said earlier on that in a real car, it's really difficult to get the car out of gear when the drivetrain is under load. And that's what this simulates really well. So I'll get around this corner, up to third. Now I'll try and remove it from third. It won't. Into fourth, I can't move it out of gear. Even when I'm off the gas, it won't move until I push the clutch in. Same again. It won't move out of third gear until I push the clutch in. Just won't budge. And that's what it's like in a real car. You can't take it out of gear. Well, you can use brute force, but you might bend linkages, you might do all kinds of damage. So up to fourth, won't go out of gear. Up to fifth, won't go out of gear. I'm pulling on that, it literally won't come out of gear. Now, I also said that this shifter simulates when you don't do things right. Now, I did a race in this car on this track last week or a few days ago now, and I didn't have one miss shift. Yes, there was moments when I didn't engage the gear correctly, but at no point in that race was I wondering what gear I was in. I knew at all times, and this is why. So we'll go into third gear. I'll put it in neutral, and I'll not talk now. I'll try and put it in fourth. That's just vibrating in my hand. That simulates a grinding gearbox. Do it again. Just won't go in until I depress the clutch. Now, it will actually pop out of gear as well. So I'll try not to talk now. So I'm in neutral. Won't go in. There, it's popping out. It's hard to try and do that when you don't mean to do it. But it does literally pop out of gear. So we'll go into third gear. We'll put it in third. A little bit of clutch. There. So I'm pushing the clutch in. It's engaging third. But I'm talking when that's happening, but it's saying, nah, you're not in right. And it's pushing back. Crazy. Crazy. There. It's unbelievable. So it simulates the drivetrain being in gear. It won't come out of gear. It simulates when you try and engage the next gear without the clutch at the right in the right timing. It's unbelievable. And like I said, the race I did last week, I did the whole race, 3 laps around the Nordschleife in this car, and at no point was I scratching my head thinking, what gear am I in? Where before I had the active shifter, I would go for a gear and it wouldn't engage, and then I'd let the clutch out. It still wouldn't be in gear. I wouldn't know. Whereas this, it pops out of gear. I know I need to hold the clutch in for a little bit longer for it to engage that gear. Now, the software is work in progress. They're developing it all the time. Now, at the moment, it doesn't matter whether you have got 1% clutch input or 100% clutch input. The shifter recognizes the clutch and says, right, we're going to change gear, and it allows the shift. So I could change gear just with a small amount of clutch, it wouldn't matter, or I can put the clutch in all the way. That's work in progress. So when that's tidied up, it will be absolutely unbelievable. Now, more work in progress stuff regarding the software is the difference between a dog box and a car with a synchromesh gearbox. So this car has got a dog box, so you don't need the clutch for upshifting and downshifting. On the upshift, you would just lift off the gas, and on the downshift, you would just rev match, blip the throttle. That would be enough for the gearbox to allow it to change gear. But in cars such as the Formula V on iRacing, you actually need the clutch. So the software is still work in progress. They're developing it all the time. I've no doubt that will be here soon. And when it is, the bite point with the clutch, so you might have, say for example, you would need 50% clutch for it to change gear. If you haven't pushed the clutch in enough and it's at 45%, you're going to get the grinding gearbox. So as you can see there, it does things that other shifters just can't do. Like I said earlier on, other shifters are just like pressing a button. It's just an input. But with the active shifter, it just adds so much more. But that added immersion and realism, it comes at a cost, as you would expect. Now, if you wanted to buy this shifter in the UK, it's going to cost you £1,850 plus VAT. So that's £2,250. And as I said at the beginning, there's going to be a couple of types of people that really want this shifter. There's the first type who really like driving cars with a H pattern shifter. They want the ultimate realism. They want it to feel as realistic as possible. And then there's the other type of person which has just got a little bit more spare money than the rest of us, and they just want the best. But as I've also said, this is something a bit special. So when I look at new products, I always look at them as if I'm going to buy them with my own money. And at the end of the day, I'm not a product reviewer. I'm a sim racer, just the same as you guys watching. So you've got to keep things realistic. So let's break it down into a few categories. So looks, I think it looks really good. It mirrors the original bazooka shifter, which I like that style. I bought the original. It looks the same as that, but then you've got the screen on the front. You know, this doesn't look like a toy, which brings me on to build quality. And when you look at it and you get it in your hand and you change gear, you realize it isn't a toy. Now, Dave Hunter, the guy behind BDH, he's an engineer by trade, and he built the original shifter for him and his friends, and they wanted the shifter to feel like the gearbox of a Mark II Escort. And Dave's got a big background in motorsport, and he does know how things should feel. So build quality is unbelievable. Now, using the shifter day to day, I've hammered this shifter over the last week, and it's been absolutely flawless. I have never enjoyed driving a H-pattern car as much as I have this week. It's actually quite exciting when you miss a shift, because you can immediately put it right. Whereas with any other shifter, you're fumbling around trying to find the right gear, just waiting for the simulator to say, all right, no, yeah, you can now select the right gear. With this one, it's not in. You know it's not in. You've got to wait, reselect the gear. It's been absolutely perfect. And on to price, value for money, including VAT, £2,250. I know it is expensive, but nice things don't come cheap. Nobody else is doing this. This is very, very special. Would I spend my own money on it? I couldn't justify spending £2,250 on a shifter because I'm not rich. But if I had that money in the bank doing nothing, yes, I would buy it, but I don't. But do yourself a favour. If you don't have the money to buy one, don't try one, because I guarantee you'll want one. So if you've got any specific questions about it, let me know down below in the comments and I'll try and answer them. And if I don't know, I'll ask BDH for the answer and I'll put it on there. And I want to say a massive thank you to BDH for allowing me to be the first one to have one of these in my hands and create some content for you guys. But as always, thanks for watching. Have a great week. See you later. Cheers.